Y'all said red. Bam, bam. Y'all said red. Bam, bam. Close up, close up, close up, close up, close up.
All right. Welcome to another episode of The Close Up. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron. And today is going to be a little bit of a classic throwback show. I'm recording this solo. I haven't done a solo show in a while. We had a guest lined up, but unfortunately they had to cancel last minute and I couldn't find a replacement. So you're stuck with me. And yeah, I'm probably not going to record too long, maybe 20, 30 minutes. Got some things I want to talk about. The Magic just lost to the Atlanta Hawks Monday, February 10th. And yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. We're going to talk about the current state of the Magic. We'll talk a little bit about the trade deadline. We're going to talk a little bit about the offense. We're going to talk a lot about just where this team is at and what I kind of just feeling right now. So I have a few things outlined, but it's going to be a little bit off the cuff and ranty. And I hope you guys enjoy. Before we get to the show, though, we're obviously going to appreciate our supporters and sponsors that help make this show happen. First off, shout out to all you listeners and subscribers and followers, whether on YouTube, I'm listening to it on a podcast platform, follow us on social media, or a Patreon subscriber. We appreciate all you guys. Continue to subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, I know tons of you are not subscribed while you watch our content. So hit that subscribe button, like it if you want to. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, go ahead and leave us a nice 5-star review. I'd really appreciate that. Check out our Patreon program. We're ramping that up. We're about to do a really cool giveaway for our Patreon subscribers. So check that out. The link's in the description. There's a couple different ways you can get involved. Your financial contributions help us continue to make content, continue to get our reporters out to games and give you live coverage. You know, it just all goes back into the company and to you guys. We're not profiting off of anything. So go ahead and check out the Patreon program. And then to our sponsors, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA, college basketball to NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. We're a part of the Believe Podcast Network. They help us get our podcast specific out to you guys, and they help us get the BetOnline sponsorship. So shout out to Believe Podcast Network. Magic fans, listen up. Orlando Magic Radio pregame and postgame host Brandon Kravitz is live daily on 96.9 The Game Within the Zone starting at 3:30 p.m. And on Magic game days, he stretches the show all the way to 6:30 with the final 30 minutes being completely Magic focused. Want bonus content? Check out the Zoneheads podcast for weekly on-demand episodes. Shout out to BK. He's just a good friend and a great partner to Orlando Magic HQ. We very much appreciate him. Check out his stuff. All right, my rant, the state of the Magic. That might just be like the title of this episode, the state of the Magic. It's not good, friends. It's really not. So today, the Magic versus the Atlanta Hawks. They lost. It was like 112 to 106. We'll get into that game here in a little bit. Going into the game, the Magic were the 8th seed and the Hawks were the 9th seed. The Hawks had 25 wins and 28 losses. The Magic had 26 wins and 28 losses. And that has now flipped this evening after the game. Atlanta has jumped us, the Magic in the standings. They're at 26 and 28. And the Magic have played one more game and have one more loss than the Hawks. And now we are 9th place. The Magic are in the play-in in 9th. They are quite a bit above the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have 22 wins. You know, and to be on the optimistic side, the Detroit Pistons are 27 and 26. So they're not too far out of 6th place. You know, if they could actually go on a run, they might be able to catch up and kind of squeak their way out of the play-in conversation and get in that 6th range, fifth range, maybe. The Bucks are at 28. The Bucks don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo for a while. He's got an injury, going to keep him out for possibly a few weeks. They could go on a little bit of a slide there. Magic, we hope they go on a slide there. Yeah, and then you have, the Miami Heat. They're in 7th place, and the Eastern Conference are at 25 and 26. And yeah, it's just, that's kind of where the Magic are. This Magic team, when they were super injured, they held on to the 4th seed for quite a long time, and then things just started slipping and free falling, and they have just not been playing well whatsoever. Specifically, let's look at the Magic schedule for a second and how their last couple of games have looked. Let me see if I can actually just share my screen. It's been a second since I've tried this for all of you YouTube watchers. All right, so check this out, sharing my screen. So these are the last few games. They lose to Atlanta 112 to 106. They beat the Spurs. Paulo hit the game winner shot. That was a great game, 112 to 111. Wemby missed the final shot. So that was cool to see Paulo kind of get his groove there in the fourth quarter. They lost to Denver. Obviously, that was the very last game of the road trip. They beat the Sacramento Kings. So right there, the last 4 games, they're 2-2. Then they were on a 4-game losing streak that entire road trip. They lost to Miami, Portland, Utah, Golden State. Right before the road trip, they beat the Detroit Pistons. But right before that, they were on a 5-game losing streak. And it's just not been good really since the end of December. There's a lot of L's, so let's just count it up since January. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 losses, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. 15 losses and 6 wins. Guys, that's awful. The team is free falling right now, and they are not looking very good at all. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. So let's continue to dig into this, all right? The Magic's offense, to me, is the biggest problem, and we all know that, right? They have a fantastic defense. They've been holding teams to low 100s. They're actually 3rd in the NBA with 109 defensive rating. The Houston Rockets and Boston Celtics are also in the 109, but they're at Houston's at 0.3, Boston's at 0.7. So they're pretty awesome defense, and that's what keeps them in all the games. Offensively, on the other hand, they are the 29th worst offense. They have 107.2 offensive rating. So they can stop teams from scoring. They just can't score any points. They can't score on anybody. They're the 29th worst offense. The only team that has a worse offense is the Washington Wizards. The teams that are directly ahead of them are the Charlotte Hornets and the Brooklyn Nets and the New Orleans Pelicans. They all have under 110 offensive rating. And, the Magic are dead last. We all know this. The Magic are dead last in 3-point makes. It's just not great. What's frustrating is on a night like tonight where they played the Atlanta Hawks, they actually shot 40% from 3. They went 13 of 30. That was great. They had a great 3-point shooting night. But the problem is Paulo and Franz were the only players that actually made shots. That actually took shots, not even made shots. They only took shots. I'm pulling up the box score right now. And if we look at the box score, again, let me just share my screen one more time with you all. For those of you watching, if you're not watching, you're listening, go ahead and, flip over to YouTube and give us a watch. So you scroll down to the Magic, right? So we're looking at the box score. The first column is minutes played. The second column is field goal attempts. That includes 3-pointers as well. You have Paulo Banchero, who went 10 of 22, ending with 31 points. He had 22 shot attempts. Franz Wagner, great game, 37 points. He took 29 shots. Then you go down the list. Goga Bitadze took 1 shot. Cole Anthony took 5 shots. He got himself in a little bit of foul trouble and turnover trouble, so he only played 18 minutes, unfortunately, or he obviously would have taken more shot attempts. Contavious Caldwell Pope, 4 shot attempts. Then you go down to the second unit. Jonathan Isaac, 3 shot attempts. And remember, the second unit often gets staggered with Franz or Paulo to, just continue to always have a starter with that second unit. Tristan da Silva, 5 shot attempts. Wendell Carter Jr., 2 shot attempts. Gary Harris in 14 minutes, 1 shot attempt. And Anthony Black was the third leading shot attempt taker and took 6 shot attempts. So what does that tell me? Well, what tells me is it's matching what my eyes are seeing right now. The Magic's offense is just completely stagnant. What's happening is often like, Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, whoever the primary ball handler is of the guard, gets it up half court. Sometimes they'll run a pick and roll, but immediately just like pass it to Paulo and Franz. And then it just goes to ISO ball. They're trying to hunt for a mismatch. But then you have the rest of the 4 guys just standing around. You can look at plays from the game tonight, and from a lot of the games, and the players are just standing on the edge waiting for a kick-out pass. Hardly anyone is moving or cutting to the basket. Yes, there are occasions when you see that. There are occasions when you see like a nice pick and roll that's run with like a double drag or something like that. But for the most part, it like as soon as the first attempt of a play gets broken down by the defense, which is very common in today's NBA, it just defaults to ISO. There's no secondary or third actions that happen to get guys going. And then, okay, cool. You like the ball in Paulo and Franz's hands, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black, these guys are just standing there. They're not actually they're not moving off ball. They're not cutting to the basket. They're not being threats. And I don't necessarily blame these guys for that. I blame the offensive system, right? This is Coach Mosley's job to integrate an offense that is going to get guys in rhythm and in good looks. You want to know why guys are not hitting shots? Because they don't have an offensive system that can get them into a rhythm. If a guy is only going to hit, take 2, 3, 4 shots a game, that's not enough for them to get comfortable with the ball. I remember hearing this podcast from an NBA player a while back. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how their point guard often would just pass them the ball early into the game, just so the ball was in their hands and they could feel the ball, get used to the ball. If the ball is not in their hands and the first time they touch a ball is, way into the first quarter or at some, they're just touching it very infrequently, there's just no feel for it right there, right? And yeah, these guys are professionals. They're supposed to know what a basketball feels right. But like if you've ever played sports, if you're not constantly involved, you're not going to have a rhythm. You're not going to have a feel for the game, a feel for your personal performance of the game, right? You need shot attempts. You need to be involved. You need to be touching the basketball, even if it's just like swing, right? Get the ball, pass it to another guy. You don't ever see multiple passes in an offense with the Magic right now. It's like 1, maybe 2 passes, and then it's in Paulo or Franz's hands, or maybe it's a kick out, but like there's just no ball movement. There's no off-ball movement. It's just so stagnant and stuck. I want to bring this point even more home. Let's talk about usage rates, okay? Paulo and Franz are top 10 in the league in usage rate right now. Franz Wagner is has the 6th highest usage rate in the NBA at 32.1%. He's actually tied with Paulo at 32.1%. So Paulo and Franz are 6th in the NBA in the highest usage of players. That is in line with players like Joel Embiid, who is at 35.8%, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is at 35.6%, LaMelo Ball, again, their offense is trash, 35.5%, Zion Williams, when he's playing, 24%, and SGA, who we also know is high usage player, 33.3%, or sorry, 33.7%. Luka Doncic, 31.9%. Anthony Edwards, 31.2%. So we're talking about like guys that we all know are super, super duper high usage. And like, what's funny? It's, like Steph Curry isn't on this list. Donovan Mitchell is not a top 12 usage player. Neither is Jason Tatum. Neither is Jaylen Brown. Neither is Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is up there though. I think he's like top 15. Neither is Tyler Hero, who's got a lot of usage going on in Miami right now. Kevin Durant. Who else is not on this? Devin Booker. LeBron James isn't even on this list. Like, I'm just talking about, the list I keep referring to, the top 12 highest usage players. And you can find this information on NBA.com in their advanced stats area, or like Basketball Reference. It's very easy to find, or just Google search NBA usage, like high usage players or whatever list, and it'll give it to you, right? It's kind of insane. So we've talked about Paulo and Franz, how high their usage rate is. I want to see that usage come down. Let's talk about the rest of the Magic roster. All right. I will once again, let's do some screen sharing. I'm liking this right now. I haven't screen shared enough with you guys in the past, and I feel like I should start doing that more often. Just, guys, go look at the, watch us on YouTube. All right. Usage rate. It's the third column. The first column is games played. The second column is minutes. We're going to talk about usage rate. Again, you got Paulo and Franz both at 32.1%. Jalen Suggs, we know when he plays, he gets the ball in his hands a decent amount. That's 26.8%. And Cole Anthony, he's often leading a second unit or something like that. Mo Wagner, before he got injured, they're both at 25.4%. Now, let's drop down to some of the key players. Anthony Black, he's a ball handler. He's running some pick and rolls. He's doing some drives. He's an on-ball player. Particularly when he's in the second unit, he's at 18.2%. But we're going to talk about Jonathan Isaac. He's on the court pretty often. He's only missed like 6 games this year. He's played 49 games. He's at 15.9% usage. Granted, he's not a crazy offensive player. Like, he doesn't have a lot of like ball handling skills or anything like that. And he's a very streaky shooter, but this is the lowest of his career since he was a rookie. Wendell Carter Jr., 15.5%. This is, again, the lowest of his career ever. And he's played in 42 games this year. Goga, he's got this is decent for him and his role, 15.1%. This is imagine what you want him at. It's like, putbacks, taking advantage of post-ups on mismatches, things like that. Then we're going to drop down to KCP. He's a pretty big minute player for the Magic. He's always playing in the 30-plus minutes. He's a starter. He's played 52 games. 12.8% usage rate is the lowest of his career. Straight up the lowest. Gary Harris, 9.7%, lowest of his career. So why am I bringing that up? You have 4 players, KCP, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, and Jonathan Isaac. I'm counting Jonathan Isaac since his rookie year was the lowest technically of his career, but since then, this is the lowest. These guys are just not involved. They don't touch the ball. They're getting low shot attempts because they're not involved in the offense. And again, it's just a lack of an offensive system. Coach Mosley had Nate Tibbetts, a couple years ago, and he quit. He got a job in the WNBA as a head coach, a very lucrative paying position for him. And that was like right before training camp, maybe in like the first week of training camp. And instead of bringing an outside head coach or, really high end assistant head coach to take over that offensive coordinator, and Nate was the offensive coordinator for the Magic. Instead of doing that, they promoted from within, which, if you know Coach Mosley, he's a defensive minded coach. So he's probably got a good amount of defensive minded assistant coaches, or just like some pretty inexperienced assistant coaches, I would guess. I don't know. I couldn't tell you half the assistant coaches' names, but there's no other recognizable names on our coaching staff. At least with Nate, that was a bit of a recognizable name. You go up and down most of these NBA rosters that have, a head coach, you'll recognize the primary assistant head coach's name most likely because they've probably been in the league for a very long time. They've maybe had a head coaching experience somewhere else. And again, we don't have that. The Magic don't have that. They promoted from within, which typically means it's a younger guy with less experience getting promoted to that next level as lead assistant coach. And that's something I want to see changed this summer. This offseason has a lot of pressure for the Orlando Magic. They didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things I want to see changed is I'm tired of this Magic offense being the worst in the league. Yes, we can point out there's a flaw in the roster. There's no good ball handlers outside of Paulo and Franz. The guards can't, the guards can't dribble and get past people. Like whatever you want to call it, like there's still no excuse for the Magic offense to be this bad, offensively and 3-point shooting wise, when you have guys in theory that should be able to hit some shots, particularly open ones. But I truly am blaming the system right now. And maybe this is just my feeling after being super frustrated after the Atlanta Hawks loss and just watching this stagnant offense. Again, it's one of the worst defensive teams in the league, or they're a mediocre defensive team, but like worst score. It's just like it was so frustrating to watch this tonight. So yeah, I'm challenging Coach Mosley, like, challenging, watching, whatever you want to call it. I truly hope he takes a deep look at his staff, realizes he's got to shake some things up, and brings in an experienced offensive coordinator, maybe someone who's had head coaching experience with another team and is kind of like a free agent on the market right now. Bring them in. Let's booster this roster or this coaching staff, and let's make our offense more innovative. Yeah, just like this has to happen, or this team is always going to be an issue scoring the ball. And if you can't score the ball, you're not going to get out of the first or second round. And we have Paulo and Franz. So again, they had 31 and 37 points tonight, 68 points between two players. And it wasn't enough because the rest of the team didn't get involved enough to score enough points to actually make it happen. It's funny too, because it's like even the guys that shot, it's not like they were all that bad. Wendell Carter Jr., 2 of 2. He made both the shots. Anthony Black, 2 of 6, like that's like 30% or whatever. Cole Anthony, 3 of 5. Kentavious Caldwell Pope, he shot 33% from 3, 1 of 3. But other than that, it's like, Goga, 1 shot attempt, and he missed it. Like Goga ended the game with 0 points. He had a decent defensive game. Obviously, like he had 4 blocks, he had a steal, 1 turnover, only 2 personal fouls. So but 3 rebounds and 0 assists or 0 points scored. Just like that's just frustrating. So that's my offensive rant. Now, let's kind of circle back. What is contributing to this poor offense? Well, part of it is player personnel, right? Your best ball handler right now with Jalen Suggs out is Cole Anthony and Anthony Black. And we both know those guys are flawed as ball handlers. Anthony Black is super young. He's still learning how to figure out how to run offenses. He's, he is improving. All right. He had 5 assists tonight, only 1 turnover. He had a pretty good game, when the ball was in his hands. It's just that, like, he sometimes can have a hard time getting by quicker defenders. So he gets shut down, and then he just passes it to someone else. There are also nights where he's like high turnover prone, or just not making the right reads, or he's just defaulting too much. He's been a little bit more aggressive recently, which has been nice to see. But he also has these moments, these stretches where he can default and just kind of be a shell of himself on the court and not really make many moves. Cole Anthony, 4 assists tonight, but he had 4 turnovers. Like the Magic had 17 turnovers tonight, and he had 4 of them. And those are your 2 primary ball handlers outside Paulo and Franz. And we know what needs to happen for Paulo and Franz to reduce their usage rate. They need to play off ball a bit more. It needs to go stand in the, move off ball, find a mismatch in the post, get the ball fed to him so he can take advantage of that. Franz is a really good off-ball mover too. So like we just need guys to help allow them to get into their positions off ball. So things are just distributed a bit more. You don't need Franz Wagner taking 29 shot attempts. Yes, he had 30. That's just 29 shot attempts is not sustainable. Paulo Banchero, 22 shot attempts. That's not as bad, but that's a lot. Like we need to distribute the ball to more players. And part of that comes with point guard improvement play, whether it's Jalen Suggs continuing to develop, but I think a lot of us think he'd be better as just a primary 2-ball that's like a good secondary type of ball handler. He has made some improvements as a ball handler this year. I'm not going to lie there, but he's not on the court right now. The second unit, like we all would love to have like a bucket getting secondary, second unit point guard. We were all hoping to get like some like Colin Sexton or Anthony Simons, Malcolm Brogdon, guys that can facilitate and run an offense, but also be a good playmaker, good passers. We know that needs to be addressed. And with the front office standing pat this past deadline, like, I've written an article about it. The Orlando Magic HQ has written 3 articles, and we've even had a podcast specifically about the trade deadline. So if you want to get some more deeper thoughts on all that, just circle back. Wherever you're listening to this, you can find our most recent podcast or go to our website, orlandomagichq.com, and you can read our we have 3 different articles on it. The one I wrote was a fan reaction article where I interviewed about 5 different fans with their thoughts on the deadline. That just got posted on Monday. And yeah, what I think about that is it sucks because, we're relying on Jalen Suggs to get back to kind of help with this offensive struggle. But that's one player coming back isn't going to fix everything, right? There needs to be more roster changes, and this deadline was an opportunity to do that. Jeff Weltman talked about, they were involved in trade talks, but a lot of people were trying to squeeze them, and he didn't want to overpay with long-term assets for short-term relief, band-aids, players that could walk in like a year. And to me, it's just a missed opportunity, like not even finding a way to free up the bottom of the roster to bring in someone off the buyout market. Like, what if D'Angelo Russell gets bought out? Like, I'm not sure it's going to happen, but he's a name that's been rumored to, right? And that team is trying to tank. So there's just things there's missed opportunities there. And to me, that puts a large amount of pressure on this offseason, right? Now, it's not all doom and gloom. They're going into the offseason with, they're going to have all their players currently all their current players available for trade. Wendell Carter Jr.'s trade restriction will be lifted. He was not available to be traded at this deadline. Gary Harris, Corey Joseph, Caleb Houston, they all have team options for that next year. So what's cool about that is you can use them in a trade this offseason for a team that wants some salary cap relief, and that can be options to bring in someone. The Magic still have extra first-round picks with the Denver Nuggets for this summer of 2025. There's also the following season, there's like a first round pick swap with the Phoenix Suns, which is very valuable. And then we have the Magic have 5 or 6 extra second round picks in the next 4 years. So they have plenty of tools and assets and good players good contracts on players that can be used for salary filler. There's guys that could be attractive to other teams like Wendell Carter Jr., Cole Anthony. There just has to be a change, and Jeff Weltman he's got to make moves this summer. You can't roll back this team another year with just a minor change and expect it to make a massive improvement offensively. If you're a top 10, top 5 defense and a bottom 10 defense, I'm going to repeat that. If you're a top 5 defense and a bottom 10 offense, that's not a recipe for success to be a truly competitive team in the playoffs. And I'm not expecting this team next year to go from first round team to finals appearance, but I'd love for them to be a threat to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, or at least a bona fide second round team, home court advantage. You have Paulo and Franz, who are all-stars. They're both fantastic. Obviously, Paulo is still finding himself a little bit, but he's starting to look a lot better these last couple of games. And the GM and the president of basketball operations, they sat there and did nothing. And it's just so frustrating. It feels like a missed opportunity. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on them this summer. I'm not sure if they're going to get their contract extended before free agency starts. Next year is their last season on contract. The front office and Coach Mosley, they had him tied at the same length. So there's a very real possibility they get another short extension, another 2 years or something like that. We'll see what happens there, but I do expect some pressure on them. Maybe not you're fired pressure, but there should definitely be pressure on them to improve this roster and improve the offense. We got talented players. Contavious Caldwell-Pope is a career 39% three-point shooter. There's something systematically on why he is not hitting shots. This dude is not washed. What did he shoot last year? I'm just going to pull it up real quick. Last year from 3, he shot 40%. The year before that, 42%. The year before that, 39%. The year before that, 41%. The year before that, 38%. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 years in a row of 38% or better. And now he's shooting career worst 31%. Like, to me, that's not washed. To me, that is just not being utilized properly. And it's unfortunate. You got good players like obviously superstars in Paulo and Franz. Anthony Black is showing some nice sparks as a potential player offensively. Not like special as in like he's going to be an all-star, but someone who might be able to be a consistent 10, 12 point per game scorer. You know, things got to change, guys. I'm frustrated. I'm sorry this wasn't the most positive podcast out there, but you know, let's end it on some positivity here for a second. I will go to the upcoming schedule and we can just talk about that for a moment. Give me one moment to pull it up. Cool. So Wednesday, the Magic they're at home versus the Charlotte Hornets, and that is right before the NBA All-Star break, where you can watch Anthony Black and Tristan da Silva go represent, and Mac McClung, who's in the dunk contest. You can watch them go participate in the Rising Stars and dunk contest. And then the next game is a road trip in Atlanta. Hopefully the Magic will get some W's on those two games. Then it's another big homestand in February. You come home on the 21st to see Memphis, 3rd Washington Wizards, 20th TNT game, Cleveland Cavaliers at home again. I mean, these are all home games. Golden State Warriors, Toronto Raptors again on February 4th, Chicago Bulls, and then they head off to a 4-game road trip. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 out of the next 9 games are home games. The Magic should, and some of these teams are not all that scary. So the Magic should be able to get some W's. Like, they haven't won back-to-back games since December 1st and 3rd. That's the last time they won 2 games in a row. All the other times were, there's just no 2 games in a row. They can't string any wins together right now. So sorry, it's all not a super happy show this week. Paulo's starting to figure it out. That's fun. Franz is obviously balling out. That's great. But let's see if they can figure this out offensively, because right now it's not been pretty. That's going to wrap it up for me on tonight's episode of the Close Up with Orlando Magic HQ, a shorter one for you all. I hope you enjoyed the show. Tune in next week. Don't forget to check out our content online. If you want to get involved after games, you can go to our post-game spaces on X. We post them after every game. We have great hosts, Stanley, Bryce, and Skinny. They all, they go live. You can jump in and rant and talk your thoughts about the Orlando Magic after a game. They're great times. Yeah, go Magic. I'll see you next week. Peace.